Hi, Corinne. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be with you, Christy.
Great to have you here today to share more with us about Habitat for Humanity. So let's start with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your position as CEO at Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia?
Well, how far back do we want to go? Just kidding.
As far as you'd like.
I'm a Philly kid. I grew up just outside in Jenkintown, went to St. Joe's University. Right out of college, took a job in corporate America, and I made it about a year and a half. Kind of in that year and a half, I was like, this is just not the right fit. And so without a whole lot of strategy, took a job then at Project Home, which with Sister Mary Scullion and Joan Dawson McConnon, and was there 5 years working as the volunteer coordinator. And so, working alongside folks experiencing homelessness. And so it's from there, kind of that initial seed that was planted of just how important housing is, right, for us to thrive as humans. And so, yeah, I can say that's where it started way, way back. And now it's almost 25 years in the housing sector.
Wow. Amazing. So, and I love that you're Philadelphia native because I think that I'm also from the Philadelphia area. And I think that we sort of pull from this deep passion for our city that, kind of propels the work that you're doing as well, right?
Absolutely. I heard one time, Philadelphians, we sort of dare you to like us. And I think that's such a good way, we got the chip on our shoulder, but we're sort of like, we dare you to like us. And then once you're in, like,
you'll love us.
Oh, just arms around you.
You will love us.
We'll force you to love us. We dare you to love us.
I love that so much. I've never heard that, but that's so good. Mm-hmm. And it is so on point for this city. So at Habitat for Humanity, you build strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter. Can you tell us more about the core values and overall mission of Habitat for Humanity, both here in Philadelphia and your other locations as well?
Absolutely. So we are one of 1,000 affiliates in the United States, combined then with 70 country offices. So we're both a global and a local enterprise. So I love that piece, that we're part of this larger and yet at the same time very in our own backyard impact. So globally, Habitat, it's over 59 million people since Habitat for Humanity International was started, that we've worked alongside. In Philadelphia County is where I work and lead. We've built 260 homes, and we've repaired over 920. And that's alongside, families who are low wealth, oftentimes working 2 jobs, just paycheck to paycheck. And so that intervention of affordable homeownership, I like to think of it, the image of it's like when the wheel is spinning, right? This like vortex of poverty, to disrupt it through housing. And that there's then more space, people can catch their breath and think, what else is possible? Instead of just paycheck to paycheck to paycheck of just trying to make ends meet.
You're giving them a moment to bring their head up for air a little bit.
And that's when we think about executive decision making and to have any sort of forward orientation in a mindset, it's nearly impossible when every day you think, am I paying rent? Am I putting food on the table? Am I paying rent, or am I buying a transit pass? Am I paying rent, or am I buying prescriptions? Every day navigating that path.
Yeah. I love that visual that you gave of the wheel, because it's
like this just poverty vortex that people are in.
That you're just stuck in this situation where you feel like every day, like you said, it's an option of this or that, and how incredibly life-changing that must be if one of those things, the weight gets lifted off your shoulders a little bit.
Yeah. So families buy the biggest misnomers out there is the families get the home for free. They don't. They buy from Habitat. It's a low interest. In Habitat Philadelphia, it's a 0 interest mortgage. So right now, with interest rates where they are, but you take that mom or that dad or that family who, let's say, are earning $48,000 a year with 2 kiddos. They buy from Habitat. It's a 0 interest mortgage. Right now, a 2-bedroom in Philadelphia, the average rent is $1,890.
Wow.
The homes we just most recently sold, that mortgage is $765. So there's $1,100 a month now that family is saving. So groceries, after school activities. When there is a disruption, when there is a medical event, you have a little cushion in a savings account. When hours at work get reduced, you can still pay your mortgage. Yeah. So that's that space again, that disruption, and creating an opportunity. I say we're in the door opening up business, the opportunity door opening business, empowering people to have more choices than less.
Yeah. Yeah. And Habitat homeowners help build their homes, right? So that's something I want you to touch on here too. So alongside volunteers, and then they pay an affordable mortgage, like you said. Can you tell us more about this model and what you feel the most beneficial aspects of that approach are to have them so involved in the process?
So historically, this is it's in the ethos of those 1,000 habitats in the United States, right? Sweat equity. So that sense of skin in the game. Habitat Philadelphia, our ask of families is 125 hours. And we actually have recently, in the last 3-4 years, looked at that, Christy, and reshaped that. It used to be 350. But then we looked at it through a lens of trying to reduce barriers that we had in place. So that mom working 2 jobs with the requirement to do 350 hours, that was 2 Saturdays a month that she's out working on site at Habitat, requiring her to find childcare for kiddos. Like, it just was an added burden. So we took a real hard look at sweat equity and have reframed it. So it's now 125 hours, with a lot of those hours in financial literacy, right? Because we want families to have a really strong understanding of budgeting and be able to afford and pay for that mortgage month over month. And then, yes, out on site. And families who are in the program, they love that part, because it goes from, we're working on these 20 homes at Oxford Green, to suddenly, oh, now I'm working on Christy's home at 2208. And now I'm working on Corinne's home at 2210. And so it goes from a kind of a nondescript into knowing your neighbors and helping to build, literally physically, your neighbor's home, and building those relationships alongside neighbors. And then even into the space of, when you meet homeowners, they say, oh yeah, I did the trim in this home, or not this home, my home. I hung these cabinets. So a real sense of pride in what they have accomplished, both in buying, but also in building.
That makes a lot of sense also, because with that pride comes the desire to keep what you've created.
Yeah.
And I love that you're doing the financial literacy piece too, because honestly, I've now owned a home for 13 years myself, and I'm like, why weren't we taught? Really?
No, it's one of the
why were we not
financial
taught
decisions,
how to manage everything? You're kind of just like,
thrown into it.
And
you sign a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. And you think about what a huge burden that is on anybody. But to your point, what you were saying, like, if this is a family with lower income, they've got multiple children, just the burden after burden of then trying to navigate all this. But I love that you do the financial literacy piece, and that you keep them involved in such a way that gives them pride in what they've created alongside of Habitat, that will then be theirs to take care of and keep moving forward with. And you also are always looking for skilled workers, right? And contractors to work alongside new construction and repair projects. So can you tell us more about that need, and how can people volunteer to be a part of that process?
So volunteers are always part of the Habitat DNA, helping us to build, helping us to repair, also volunteering at the Restore. So I want to plug the Restore. We can come back and talk about these cute sofas. I'm like, ooh, we sell sofas like this at the Restore. But we're always looking for skilled volunteers. So, a shout out or a call out for retired carpenters, retired electricians, retired plumbers. Not that we don't love our unskilled folks like me, who I'm like, I do email. I don't know how to measure and build things. We will teach you. We will train you. We will have a safe volunteer day for you. But the absolute jackpot is when we get skilled folks that come out and volunteer alongside the team. That is an incredible, it just advances the house production and the repair production. So always looking for skilled volunteers to come out and volunteer with us.
How does that work too? Do you have like a general contractor on site who basic, if unskilled workers are there, they're showing them how to do everything safely.
I mean, we have a team of 30 carpenters.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So again, we've evolved from, when we started in 1985, it was very grassroots and it was all volunteer and it was very church-based and amazingly grassroots. That was 1985, and where we are today, our budget is about $18.5 million. We have between construction staff, repair staff, office, fundraising, and then the 2 restores, we have an 80-person team. It's big.
Oh, wow.
Again, on average, have 20 homes in construction, varying stages of construction, and repair 125 a year. So that evolution from 1 or 2 homes built with all volunteers in the very beginning, that's still part of the ethos of who we are. And yet the sophistication and the level of growth, right, attempting to meet the need for affordable housing in Philadelphia sort of parallels the number of years we've been around.
It's amazing that it's grown that much since 1985. So tell me about Restore, because I definitely don't want to forget to talk about that.
So it's like Five Below meets Home Depot, right? You can find your local Restore, much like if you were looking for a Lowe's or a Home Depot, right? Plug in your zip code and you can find it in your backyard. So your listening audience, right? If you're in South Jersey or Westchester, you can find your Restore. Open to the public. We accept donated building supplies and home goods. Trucks will come out and pick up, gently used. And yes, emphasis on gently used, right? You don't want us to be paying to put your junk in the dumpster. You want us to be able to resell those items to the public. But the proceeds then, Christy, help us build and repair more homes. So, it's a triple win of it doesn't go into the landfill. It's repurposed. And those proceeds, again, helping to advance Habitat's mission. So Restore has been a really critical piece of our fundraising pie. It's earned revenue. And when you look at our growth trajectory, Restore's been a big piece of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is such a great idea.
Yep. Social entrepreneurship.
I love that.
Why not why not be in construction? That's hard. Why not do residential, owner-occupied, deep repairs, and then throw in a retail business? Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
But look at how much of an impact you're having, and that the fact that it all ties together and works so well for the common goal and overall mission, it makes so much sense. And thankfully you have the team to pull it off.
To do it, absolutely. It's last week I had looked at, last year we picked up 65,000 items.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And supporting the 2 restores in Philadelphia. So we have one in the northwest part of town and one down in South Philly. 65,000 items, and then 21,000 shoppers came in and bought.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you drop stuff off at the
Absolutely.
location? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is great. I did not know anything about this, and I will be 100%
there you go.
involved.
Most of the furniture at my house, I've bought at the Restore.
Why not?
Really nice stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
And I do love the idea of it not going into the landfill. Like when you're getting rid of something just because you don't need it, or if it's gently used and you're just not using it anymore, why not repurpose it in that way? Right. Love that.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with us, because now hopefully we'll get some more people involved.
Yeah. And it's another, bringing it back to the volunteer, we have volunteers all the time, right? Of, helping to unload donations, helping to, get materials on the floor, helping with customers. So it's a very volunteer friendly opportunity through the Restore.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great to be able to share with listeners. And can you tell us more about the current initiatives that you have in place?
So we're currently building Coltrane Commons is the community, actually neighbors named the development. It's in Strawberry Mansion. It's 33rd and Oxford Street. So for anybody, with their families, it sits right on the edge of East Fairmount Park. So I don't know if you and your kids ever went to Smith Memorial Playgrounds.
Yes, we've been there many times.
Yeah, so it's just across the street. There are 21 homes we are building there. We will sell 5 more the 13th of June. We just landed on that date. So 5 more families will buy, and then 10 more later this summer, August. So that will be the 21 homes we will have completed there. And it's just amazing in both a neighborhood that has such a rich history in Philadelphia, but also a neighborhood that has been under-resourced for decades. So to see this resurgence, right, of new construction and people buying again in Strawberry Mansion, to build Habitat homes there, to create 21 affordable home ownership opportunities for families to, put roots down in Strawberry Mansion is really important. But as well as then knowing families who have already bought their homes there, the beautiful, healthy, green homes with a backyard, and then Fairmount Park as the playground for the kiddos growing up there is pretty remarkable.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing the area myself, I'm thinking, wow, that's really special to be able to set them up in that specific area of the city.
Yeah, and it's a couple doors down from where John Coltrane had lived, hence the name Coltrane Commons.
Yes. Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
That's just awesome. And at Habitat, you say that everyone deserves to build the foundation for a stable, healthy future for themselves and their families, which is exactly what we're talking about with these new homes, no matter who they are, where they live, or how much money they earn. So as an organization, you have long advocated for homeowners for increased housing affordability. Can you tell us more about that focus on advocacy?
Sure. So to step back one from, before we jump to why advocate, 1 in 4 families in Philadelphia faces that decision every month, right? Am I paying rent? Am I paying, putting food on the table? 1 in 4. And I know many of your guests have talked about this, but the deep level of poverty in Philadelphia. So housing and ownership in particular, different than renting, right? But ownership, building equity. I mean, our entire capitalist, like how the economy here in the United States works is in the space of ownership and housing, right? And using that equity, right, to have a kid go to college, or equity to start that small business, what have you. So on our strategically in the last number of years have really dug in. So we have this huge volunteer base. We have this incredibly strong brand, but we had traditionally only, again, there's that air quotes again, right? Of like, we're just going to build and we're just going to repair. But a number of years ago, stepping back, we are never going to build our way out of how many people need a decent place to live. So it's like, let's get upstream. And what are smarter policies? What are smarter things that need to happen at the federal and the state level that allow for more housing to be built, more access to loans, et cetera, et cetera. So one that I can point to, an advocacy win, the state, Pennsylvania state, 3 or 4 years ago, Senator Nikhil Saval put forward legislation called the Whole Home Repairs Act. And that was to create state dollars for every county in the Commonwealth that people who own their homes, low-income people, could have access to dollars to do repairs on their home. So Philadelphia, the context, right? We have a really high housing stock, but it's old. It's over 100, 150 years old, coupled with older people, low income. So it's falling down around people. So let's repair the home. Let's fix the roof. Let's fix the basement. Let's fix windows. Let's keep people in their homes. So that was legislation we got behind and turned on, as I say, the Habitat Army to call legislators to say, yes, this is a common sense, both sides of the aisle. This makes sense, the Whole Home Repairs Act. So that's one that I can point to of us building our advocacy muscles, different than that volunteer who's swinging a hammer, and yet at the same time, the volunteer who picks up and, well, now we don't really use phones. We just text and, that sort of thing. But engaging with the elected officials to say we're behind this and encouraging them to support the Whole Home Repairs Act.
That's huge. And it seems like it just ties into the whole overall mission.
Absolutely.
And those volunteers are equally as important, right?
Absolutely.
The one that's holding a hammer and the one that's reaching out to move the legislation.
A constituent calling their elected official to say, I'm a volunteer with Habitat Philadelphia. And we prepare, our advocacy alerts, we make it as easy for that, resident to call their elected official and advocate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's just people need to, even just hearing this conversation, again, this is why I love doing this podcast, because people just don't even really understand that need, right? And that it's everything that you just explained, how important that is and how they can be a part of it, just signing up to be a part of your volunteer system.
Sign up for our advocacy alerts and just start learning. Just start reading a little bit of what we're following, and you don't even have to jump in all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's such good information. You also have a lot of events going on here in Philadelphia. So to help support your mission, can you tell us more about these events and how listeners can stay up to speed on the event details?
So all of our information is on our website, habitatphiladelphia.org. And again, for listeners perhaps looking for their local, habitat.org. But Habitat Philadelphia, if you'd like to, join and follow what we're doing in the city. We just, Thursday a week ago, was our Building Hope Luncheon. And we had done 4 years virtual, very successful virtual, but this was the first year back in person. And it was our 15th anniversary of the event. It's 90 minutes. We get folks in and out the door. It's lunch. And our goal was to raise 500. And we had a tremendous response from corporate sponsors on the front end. We had a goal to have 800 in the room. We had 850 join us for lunch. And in the space of people are really inherent, like we want to be called to be our better selves. Mm-hmm. The response was absolutely mind-blowing. And so we've surpassed $725,000 raised at our Building Hope Luncheon.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. Right?
That's awesome.
Radical generosity.
Wow.
Radical generosity. To stand and say, here's who we are, and have families share their lived Habitat experience. We had a young gentleman whose parents bought. He grew up in the home. He's now a second-year law student at Widener. And so to have Avery talk about, before Habitat and after Habitat, and have him, right, again, that mindset of future orientation of where he's going, and back to that idea of we're in the door, the opportunity business, the door opening opportunity business. When you map it pretty simply for people and invite people to be in relationship and understand, numbers are really important, impact numbers and financials are really important. We're also Habitat for Humanity. And so when you get to be in relationship with humans, it makes it really easy to say, yes, I want to be part of that.
The storytelling is huge.
Yeah.
It's very much what we do with Be the Good Media. Mm-hmm. And it's why this platform exists with the podcast. Just getting people to understand the true why behind your mission. Like you said, like the numbers speak for themselves, and, even just how many families you've been able to impact, that does speak volumes. Mm-hmm. But to hear a story like that of this young person who was given the opportunity to have, a safe home that was affordable for
stable
their parents, mm-hmm. and stable, exactly, mm-hmm. to then look at the trajectory mm-hmm. Of opportunity that created for that individual. That is powerful.
In the homes that we've built, the last 3 developments, there are 132 children that are living in those in Oxford Green, Diamond Park, and Coltrane Commons. And so that was some of my message to our audience as well, of here's Avery, here's example A, but 132 more children, right, of more opportunities than less.
That number speaks to me more than anything, honestly. Mm-hmm. I think to hear how many children mm-hmm. are being impacted.
And that's our deepest impact, is children who grew up in Habitat homes, right, finish high school, go on to college, go on to a VOTEC school, right? And that is earning power, and that is health benefits, and, just all of the pieces to live a more thriving, robust life. And that can trace back to, I often, right, get asked why housing, and of all of the sort of intractable challenges we face as a country, as a society, in our city, right? Education deficit, just all of the biggies, housing sits right at the center. So health, as an example, the number one reason kids miss school in Philly is asthma. Where they live makes them sick. So we have a unique partnership with Children's Hospital, where a kiddo coming into the ER with asthma, frequent flyer, as we like to call them, right? The doctor, the nurse practitioner, writes a script for the guardian, for the parent, to call Habitat. We go out and remediate the mold, make the home healthy, right? For the kiddo, for the family. Kiddo can now go back to school. So yes, we need to solve the education, the discrepancy between haves and have-nots in education. But as we're putting funding into, public education, if where the child makes them sick where they live, they can't get to school, right? From an education or from an employment space, hard to get up and go to a job interview and to feel confident and comfortable when you don't know, again, back to that mindset of just in that constant triage of how am I making ends meet, the stability of home ownership, the savings that is there. The same family we're talking about with Avery, his mom went back to CC Community College of Philadelphia. Wow. Right? Since buying her home, right? She went back to community college, working on her bachelor's degree, right? Of then what opportunities open for her with that stability and with more earning power, what then is possible.
I'm so glad you told us the story about the asthma piece, because I think that's an aspect of what you do that most people would never know is a part of what you do. And that is really like compassion in action in the community of, how many ways can we really help you and help these children especially thrive in their environments. And that's leads me to my next question. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about the topics of compassion and community. They're really my favorite two things to talk about. So first, can you tell us what is your own definition of compassion?
We're all connected, right? And that would be my third, that I would say compassion, connection, and community. My health, my well-being, there it is, tongue-tied. My ability to thrive is connected to you, is connected to Avery, is connected to his mom, etc. So compassion, right, is seeing the humanness in all, and inviting myself, right, I have to often remind myself, and I've heard this and I love this, Greg Boyle, he's a Jesuit who runs Homeboy Industry. He has this beautiful quote, and he says, it's easier to be in awe of what people have to carry than to judge how they carry it. Right? So think about that, right? To be in awe of what they have to carry, then judge how they carry it. And to me, compassion is caught up right in that. Compassion is in that of just being in awe of what another human being, what they've had to carry and their struggles and their challenges, and allowing that same grace for myself instead of judging, right, how people carry it. And it's easy to get caught in the judging. It's much easier to get caught in how I would do it and how, but to step back and to allow for that awe and allow for that grace, and that we are all trying to do the best we can.
100%. And what a powerful perspective shift that
Isn't
is.
that?
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's very easy.
Oh.
And most people do get caught up in the judging.
It's just natural.
It is.
Yeah.
But what it could do, not just in giving grace to that person, I think you said it. It gives you the ability to give yourself that grace too. That we're all dealing with hard things in our own, unique ways. But take a look at what somebody's struggling with that's maybe so much more than you could ever imagine having to deal with.
Correct.
And just be in awe of what they're up against.
Yeah.
Instead of judging how they got there, how they're dealing with it, how they're not dealing with it, in your opinion, shift your perception a little bit and take a step back and give them that grace that you would want someone
what they
to
have
offer
to carry
to
instead
you.
of judging how they carry it.
I love that.
And then think about that for yourself of like when you're having the bad day, right? Of like someone to extend that sense of awe of like, I don't know how she's doing it today, right?
And the humanity of it, like you said, we're all human beings. So please put yourself in everybody else's shoes and think of them just as a human being.
Yeah. I come often in, getting to know families in the program, we are all more alike than different. Every mom and dad in the program only, right, every day their feet hit the floor in a space of wanting to create a better, right, for their children, better home environment, more educational opportunity, like just that their kids are happy and thriving. That is a universal parent, right? Everybody. And so to watch families, parents, and the sacrifices that they make And then at home dedications, often, right, parents don't tell the children. We had a home in the fall. The mom was working 2 jobs, 8-year-old twin girls. She didn't tell them because she thought if something, right, let's say she had to drop out of the program, she didn't want to disappoint them. And so they pull up to the dedication, and there's a big crowd of people, and there's a big red ribbon on the door. And out they get out of the car, and they're dressed alike. And the mom says to them, I bought a home. This is our home. And so these 2 little girls, wide-eyed, right, and cut the ribbon, and in they went. And you hear them just squealing. Oh. And the one says to the other, with every door she opened, oh my gosh, there's more. And like Christy, one of the doors she opened was the utility closet, right? Oh my gosh, there's more. And that's when, right, when you distill Habitat down, there is more than enough. But every little kiddo, every little 8-year-old, like those little girls, right, and their mom who is working so hard, there's more than enough. And back to that literal and figurative door opening, you think of what is now possible for those 8-year-olds. Same room, healthy rooms, homework. Yes, finishing school, high school. And then there's also birthday parties and pink bedrooms and sort of the social emotional space of what happens in homes and memories. That is so powerful for, again, us as humans to show up as our best selves and to be able to have that grace, to have awe of what people carry instead of having to judge how they carry it, right? You need to have a good night's rest and a safe place to call home and an affordable place that you have a little savings in the bank account. Another one that stays with me, oftentimes families say when after they've bought their home, it's the first time they've ever gone on a vacation, right? That's awesome. That's awesome. It's birthday parties and vacations and yeah.
I think too, it's what you're giving, thinking of those 2 8-year-old little girls, the seed you're planting in them of the power of possibility for themselves and just in life in general, right? To see their mom work hand in hand with Habitat to make this happen, even though they didn't know it was happening. Now they see what's possible. You know, I could, you know, grow up to provide for my family in such a way and have this opportunity. Like, that's really powerful.
Yeah, and I would give all the credit to their mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Her courage to keep going and probably applied to a number of housing programs and has probably been told no a lot. And her determination and resilience to keep going and finally get a yes. That's
and
amazing.
To have that moment where she gets to hear her daughters have that reaction. I mean, that's just,
and
I've got the hair on my arms has been up the whole time we've been talking
She
about
owns
this.
that home. That's hers. And there's equity in that. And again, you know, there's $1,000 a month she's saving instead of what she's paying in rent. And what then, you named it, right? What is then possible for that family?
Yeah.
More choices than less.
Yeah. That's huge. That is, there are just wonderful stories. I really appreciate you sharing because that really did give us such a full explanation or look at compassion in action, which is, that's sort of the term I'm always using is compassion in action. When we're talking about these type of things, it's having the ability to see and give someone that grace, but then also the sort of action around it that's giving them possibility and hope. That really ties it all together. So your work at Habitat for Humanity is truly centered around the community coming together to support one another. Can you tell us more about the importance of community in your opinion and how you've seen that play out in the work that you do?
So we're in the community building business. And unique about Habitat, we invite people in from all walks of life to build and to repair and to come to the restore. And people, it's hard to hang on to assumptions, right? And biases when you're working alongside, right? And when you get to know that, oh, you know, they went to this high school or, oh, you know, this just, I'm a mom and you're a mom. And so working alongside, one of our own core values is that notion of alongside, not for, but with others. And I believe really we all want to be our better selves. And Habitat creates that opportunity for us to each step in to be our better selves. And when we move from being out on the margins and in closer proximity, right? It's in that proximity, it's in that relationship building that connection and community happens. I'll share one more from my own experience. In the fall, I was building with Habitat International at the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter work project in the fall in Habitat with Habitat Charlotte. And I was working on House 17, and there were a number of volunteers. And I got paired off with this older gentleman, Henry, and we were working to hang doors, which I think I mentioned I do emails. I don't do math.
Yes.
I don't do, right? So I'm pretty chatty, and Henry wasn't. And by about day 4, all I had learned was he was 78 and he'd grown up in Radnor and he went to Lehigh, right? He just was real quiet. But on day 4, I'm on one side of the door and Henry was on the other. And he says, I was recently widowed. And he's like, I have felt so lost. And he's like, Habitat's given me purpose again. I show up and I feel needed, right?
Wow.
And so the door opens. and I give him just this giant hug, right? And so again, that space of proximity, connection, and community. Here's someone who was, right, felt lost and felt outside in his own literal loss. They were married 48 years. And through his grief, right, to come to Habitat, and a couple days a week, he shows up and he volunteers quietly, not a lot of chit chat, but feels needed again and feels part of. So that sense of us wanting to be our better selves and that sense of in proximity, in relationship, that's where community happens.
That is such a great story.
Isn't that beautiful?
And I would imagine that is going to stick with you for a very
Ever.
long time.
Ever.
Because he could have gone all that time with never telling you that. What a gift it is.
Yeah.
That he did.
Yeah.
Say that to you.
Yeah.
You know, and give you that perspective or
And
that
also,
insight into why he was there and why he was doing it.
Yeah. And okay, we were quietly side by side for a couple days and it was beautiful and we got a lot of work done. And that in and of itself, Christy, would have been enough.
Right.
But that little brave voice in him to say what was going on, and not in a big way, this very quiet way. But that has stayed with me. And that, again, comes back to that. We create space for people to draw in as opposed to out from one another.
Yeah. I was going to tell you that my husband and I lived in San Francisco back in our early 20s. And this is before we were married, before we had kids. And we had nobody there. Like, we were living on the other side of the country. We both grew up in the Philadelphia area. And kind of were finding, like, you know, what can we do with ourselves? And I suggested to him, why don't we try and volunteer for something? And we ended up on a project site for Habitat, right?
That's great.
And I just want to tell you what that experience was for me also was life-changing, because I was 23 years old. I've always been someone who's interested in, in volunteering or being a part of community projects, but I'd never done anything quite like that. We were in an area of San Francisco. We were literally like on a hill. Mm-hmm. If you're familiar with the San Francisco area, not everybody understands this, but it's like really some of these homes are built straight into a hill.
Almost like Manayunk. It's like Manayunk for us.
It is for us, exactly. Yeah. So we were on this site, and, you know, my husband's very handy. He's an electrician. But for me, that was like, I've never been like down and dirty and working on these things. But when you said it's about coming in and working alongside people, and you drop all your bias and you just drop all of your assumptions. That was so true. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily remember the people that we were with or any of the stories of what we talked about, but I remember the way it made me feel.
Yeah.
And I really felt like we together, me and these complete strangers and my then boyfriend, now husband, are doing something really powerful for a family that's going to live in here that really needs it. Like, that has stuck with me for so long. And I think it was something about like really getting your hands in there and being a part of something, and just like opening yourself up to being with people that you've never been around.
Probably in a neighborhood that you hadn't been before.
Yes.
And what assumptions you had about that neighborhood, and assumptions about, low income and who's buying. And but here it is, however many years later, right? Like, that has stayed, like, it's in there. It's in there was a little
and
neuron
I think it
pathway
continues to inform the decisions you make going forward.
Yeah.
You know, that I say that doing this podcast and having these conversations, I was sort of bit by the bug.
Yeah.
Or the production work that I do. Every person I meet, and it does come back to that point of we have so much more in common than we do different. I'm blown away by that. You know, with every passing week and every job that I'm on or every interview that I do, I'm constantly meeting people from all over the place. Yeah. And you realize, wow, we want the same things actually at the core. And we deserve the same things at the core. And so I encourage people to get out and volunteer in these type of situations, because it does shift something in you in a really powerful way that will only enhance your life experience.
Yeah.
Only make your life better.
You get more back.
Yeah.
I mean, every time, you know, the more comes back around, right? Like me with that opportunity to volunteer at the Carter Work Project, right? Like that experience alongside Henry is one that I will take with me forever. Yes. Yeah.
It's a feel good in return. You know,
Yeah.
you are getting something out of it, and that's
and hopefully those doors are still standing. No, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're, because he knew what he was doing. I was just the gopher. That's
funny. That is how I felt while I was there.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know a thing. Just show me what to do. But I was so proud of myself at the end of it too. And I think there's a lot to be said for that too.
Well, it's very tangible. You're like, okay, that wall was not painted before we started, and now that wall is. Or those cabinets were not there, and now those cabinets are hung. So there's a very tangible, you know, and even if it's at the restore of like those shelves were not stocked, and now they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just so awesome to see something that you were a part of.
Yes.
And to walk away from it knowing that you made it better somehow with your own two hands.
Yeah.
So let's tell people how they can learn more about Habitat Philadelphia specifically, since most of our listeners are in this area. How can they follow along with your mission, and how can they best support your ongoing efforts?
So our website has everything, habitatphiladelphia.org. So I encourage folks to go there, and you can click on all of the things to follow: Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, and again, also sign up for our advocacy alerts. So I encourage that for young professionals, and I'm not going to put an age definition on young professionals. We have a really active young professionals group. We have an upcoming brews and billiards gathering for young professionals. So again, like picture you and your then boyfriend, now husband, back in, right? So come out.
We would have been
all over that, right? Really, really awesome group of young professionals engaged with us. So that's another way for folks to get involved. You can find your local restore. So if you're looking to shop, to donate, to volunteer at the restore, again, you can come in through the Habitat Philadelphia page, and then we can redirect you out to the other habitats. So I would encourage people to start there. And just, you know, follow along, sign up for our advocacy alerts, sign up for our e-news, just start paying attention in the space. The other is, in a larger context, affordable housing. Almost daily, there is a story in some of the, you know, Washington Post and the New York Times around housing. And it is not just it's not just impacting low income, right? College kids coming out, young professionals who cannot afford to buy first homes. This is now affecting a much broader population. So I would encourage people to be paying attention, start reading up on affordable housing and the consequences and the impact of, and how important, again, entry affordable housing is in the larger sort of ecosystem of housing in the United States.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough for everything you share with us today, because I do hope that it inspires our listeners to just pay attention, get more involved, and just educate yourself on what's happening and how, you know, you can help support organizations like Habitat for Humanity and really feel like you're making a difference. So thank you so much for being here, Corinne. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Thanks for letting me elevate some Habitat stories.